Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. This episode was called Bay of Squids, and I don't know. There wasn't really a lot to this episode. Sarah wasn't in it at all, which is just bad form. Anyway, it starts off with a scene where I guess it's morning on the ship and Nate is leaving his room and he runs into Zari 2, who I guess has just left her room as well. She's on her way to the shower. She's wearing a robe and she doesn't have any makeup on, so she looks just like Zari 1. And he is still obviously very much, pining for Zari 1. And it must be creepy for him having Zari 2 there with Zari 1 not there. And they kind of talk about it and acknowledge it, but she is with John, so of course nothing happens. But the next scene is in the main room of the ship. I guess you'd call it the bridge. And Rory has cleaned himself up and gotten rather studious, I guess, in terms of trying to figure out ways to find Sarah. And he was behaving kind of like a professor, and it was hilarious. It was Professor Rory, and it was kind of funny. He came up with a plan for finding Sarah. Now, this episode left out some characters. As I said, Sarah was missing. John wasn't in it, nor was Astra. So is this something that these shows are doing to save money? In other words, if you have a cast of 8 people, but you only use 6 in an episode, you're only paying 6. And then in the next episode, you use 6, but switch 2 of them out, or switch 2 of them up, so that everybody gets used over the course of a season, but not everybody is in every episode? Or is it because they can't write for every character in every episode? I don't know. But if it's the latter, then I would say you have too many characters. But I think the reason they have that many characters is so that they can save money, because the newer characters haven't been on the show as long, they're not making as much. So if they're paying 4 cast members that have been on the show a long time and 2 that haven't been on a long time, they're saving more money, or they're spending less money, I should say, than if all 6 cast members are long, time cast members. So some of the episodes will have all the long time cast members, and some will have a couple that are more short timers, so they save money. I don't know. I might be talking on my rear end, but I can't think of why else they would do it. Why would you add characters if your issue is that you can't write for the characters you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Anyway, they end up figuring out that they have to go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis because that's where an alien is that can tell them where Sarah is. This, of course, is not good because if they screw it up, it could be bad. Anyway, this is what they do, and Nate ends up going to the White House pretending to be, I guess, his dad, who was a professor. I guess he is too, but he's named his dad because his dad is known at that time. So he shows up at the White House, gets to meet JFK, and he was kind of geeking out, which is pretty cool because, he is a history nerd. He also got to meet Bobby Kennedy. But I have to tell you, their Kennedys were awful. Like, the people they cast were just terrible for those parts. I don't know what they were thinking, but I don't know. They didn't look like the Kennedys at all or sound like them, so I don't know. Meanwhile, Ava is masquerading as a preeminent alien scientist doctor person. And she goes to a Cuban base and she gets in pretending to be, I think, German. And she ends up seeing the alien and it needs a surgery. So they ask her to operate on it. And she's like, oh yeah, I can do that. It doesn't go well, of course, but it is kind of funny. Then Zori's brother, whose name I don't know, he goes in dressed in camos. He's trying to masquerade as a Cuban soldier, but he's wearing a beret, and one of the other Cuban soldiers mistakes him for Che Guevara. And of course they love him. So they bring him in immediately to meet Castro, and he's all nervous, but he says, no, I'm not Che Guevara. I'm his cousin, Jay Guevara. And Castro buys it, and they're hanging out. The guy that got to do Castro looked like Castro, at least. I don't know how Castro sounds. I haven't spent a lot of time listening to the man's voice in recordings, but he looked like Castro, at least. Anyway, he proceeds to get Castro high with some of his pot gummies, and they end up, singing and the brother plays Peace Train on his guitar, and it's Castro is like in a good mood. He wants to make peace, but it doesn't last because the alien, I guess a different one from the one that's was being operated on, shows up and kind of attacks him, and he flips out. He's like, "No, the Americans did this, and I'm gonna get them or whatever." At this point, it's a half hour in, and I noticed no Sarah. This is where I noticed it, and it's not good. Anyway, back at the White House, Zari 2 and Nate are trying to convince President Kennedy not to make a first strike. Meanwhile, they keep going from DEFCON 3 to DEFCON 4, DEFCON 3, DEFCON 2. Things are getting heated, and it's, very tense. Meanwhile, Ava decides that, they may have to intervene, and it would end up killing the alien, which would sacrifice their lead to Sarah, at which point they'd have to try to find another way to find her, because she doesn't want the Cuban Missile Crisis to go badly, and because it would be very bad for history. So I thought that was a good moment for her character, that she's like, look, I want to find Sarah, but I'm not going to sacrifice, history to do it. We'll find another way. So I thought that was cool. But Rory ends up confronting the alien and, tries to explain to him or get him to stop doing what he's doing and help them find Sarah. And the alien, of course, attacks him, but the new girl who's on the show backs him up and, prevents the alien from hurting Rory. This is the woman that can talk to aliens. And they sort of strike a deal. The alien will help them find Sarah if they help the alien get back home. So they strike this deal. Back at the White House, they're literally playing football in the Oval Office over the nuclear football because the generals want to launch the codes. The president doesn't want to launch the missiles. The president doesn't want to. Nate, of course, doesn't want to. So they're kind of having a scrimmage game in the Oval Office with the nuclear football, which of course is absurd. But Zari 2 comes in the clutch with some wind power. She blows it around a little bit, allows Nate to get it. But meanwhile, Cuba has launched a missile that apparently is a nuke. And it's incoming, and everybody thinks they're going to die. But it lands, and it's a dud. I guess because Rory or someone had ended up tanking the warhead off of it. So this is kind of where the episode ends. Rory and the alien take the Wave Rider and go off to find Sarah and get the alien home. The rest of the team stays in the 60s, I guess, until he comes back or whatever. Now, I don't know why they would do that, but that's what they're doing. And they're like, where are we going to go? Oh, I know, John's house. So next week, they're going to be at John's house in the 60s. I don't know. Or John's house is time. I don't know. We'll see next week. Because next week's episode looks like it takes place in the present. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Rory is on the ship with the alien, and he's having trouble communicating with it until the alien morphs into a really attractive woman and starts speaking English, which is an interesting twist. So we'll have to see where that goes. We know Rory is leaving the show, so I don't know. This might be part of that. Who knows? The show is off now until June 6th, so we have to wait until then to see what's next. Again, this show is not high art. It's, something to watch and something to laugh at because it's silly. It gives you silly laughs, So I watch it. I like the Sarah Lance character. I watch it for her as well. I like the Rory character. I've been watching it for him. He's leaving. It's going to hurt the show, I think. Constantine character's cool. I like watching for him. My wife watches because of that character. She was not happy that he wasn't in this episode. So there you have it. That's my review. I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with the next episode review for the show after the 6th. Until then, my friends, peace and long life.